Hello students, I welcome you all to yet another session of biology. Students, I hope you might have learned and revised what was done in the previous period. Now if you recollect properly, there we had done the Holozoic mode of nutrition in case of human being. And we saw the steps in the Holozoic mode of nutrition in human beings, like ingestion. We saw the organ through which the ingestion is taking. We saw the digestion. We saw the digestion is taking place in organs like mouth, stomach and small intestine. And then we saw the process of absorption in the small intestine and large intestine. Then we saw assimilation, and the final we saw was egestion. Now in the last, we had carried out the experiment using the variegated leaf. Do you all recollect now? Yeah. Now students, in today's period, we will start with activity 6.2 of your NCERT textbook. And it is the bell jar experiment of photosynthesis using potassium hydroxide. So we will start with it. Now, here we are going to take two plants. Let's say for plant A, this is your plant A and this is your plant B. Now, these plants have already been given a dark treatment. That means I have already kept it in the dark. Now, I will keep it in the dark. Why? Because no photosynthesis should take place. Why am I so keen over it? I am keen over it so that the starch, which is the reserve food material in this plant, will be totally utilized. Okay. Now, let us, after giving the dark treatment, as I labeled it as the plant A and I have labeled it as what? Plant B. Now, let us go to the next step. Now, in the next step, I am going to keep my plant A and I am going to keep my plant A and plant B in a plate. Okay. Now let's go to the next step. Now students, now to the plate which is having my plant A, I am going to add potassium hydroxide. I again specify the plate in which I keep my plant A, I am going to add potassium hydroxide. You can see I have pointed it there and I am adding potassium hydroxide. Whereas for the plant B, I am not adding potassium hydroxide. Let's go for the next step now. Now, after I keep the potassium hydroxide in the plate which is containing my plant A, I am going to cover it with a bell jar. Can you see the jar? The shape of the jar is like a bell. So it is called as a bell jar. Now, after covering it with the bell jar, in the next step, students, I am going to seal. I am going to seal the ends of the plate and the bell jar by using Vaseline. Why am I sealing it by using Vaseline? Now that is because when I seal it with Vaseline, the outside air will not enter into the bell jar at all. And I don't want the outside air to enter inside. Because now the plants will be carrying out photosynthesis and I want the plant to carry out photosynthesis by utilizing the air which is trapped inside the bell jar. Okay, so I seal it. Now, I take this bell jar and I keep it near the source of light. I hope all of you can see the source of light here. Now, when I bring the source of light to both the plants, my plant A and plant B. So, my dear students, now you can see that all the raw materials for photosynthesis is available now. The water will be provided by the root, okay, of the potted plant, and the leaves are green in color. Light I am supplying, and you know that the air is already trapped in the area surrounding the bell jar. So when I say air, I meant to say from the air, the plant will be utilizing what? It will be utilizing carbon dioxide. So all the raw materials I am giving and I allow this plant to carry out photosynthesis for a particular span of time. After a particular span of time, now I am going to pluck the leaves of my plant A and plant B and I will carry out the test for starch. I hope all of you remember the steps which are there to carry out the test for starch. We have discussed in the previous period also. That is, we will plug those leaves and put it in the boiling water. And then that leaf, we have to put it in ethyl alcohol, and that ethyl alcohol, we will keep it in a hot water bath, because I told you that we cannot directly heat the ethyl alcohol because it will result in explosion. So you can see here the leaves are plucked and it has been added to ethyl alcohol. See here 2 leaves, in different beakers I am adding it. Now let us go to the next slide. Now in the next slide you can see that I am giving the hot water bath. Okay, after the hot water bath, now what I do is I take out both the leaves from those ethyl alcohol. Now, and I keep it in a petri dish which is labeled as A and which is labeled as B, corresponding to the plant A and B. After I keep it in a petri dish, now I am going to add my indicator, that is nothing but iodine. Now when I add iodine, let us see what happens. Now what happens is, you can see that the leaf of the plant A is not getting stained by iodine, but the leaf of the plant B is getting stained. You can see that blue-black color of iodine in that leaf of the B plant, but A plant does not get stained. Now why? Now the reason is, my dear students, if you recollect, now though that the plant which was there in pot A, in that plate I had kept potassium hydroxide. Now potassium hydroxide has the ability to take up the entire amount of carbon dioxide from the air which was trapped in the bell jar. That means this plant did not have carbon dioxide to carry out photosynthesis. So there was no formation of starch. Whereas for plant B, we did not use potassium hydroxide, because of which it could carry out photosynthesis and it is showing the presence of starch. What is the conclusion of this experiment? Conclusion of this experiment is that carbon dioxide is required for photosynthesis. So this is the conclusion of your bell jar experiment of photosynthesis using potassium hydroxide. I hope all of you might have understood. Now, let us now go to the next one, that is activity 6.3 of your NCERT textbook, and that is action of salivary amylase on starch. Now, to study about the salivary amylase on starch, here also I take 2 beakers and both the beakers I fill it with the starch solution. I am going to use an indicator, that is iodine. Now, students, to one of the beaker, I am going to add saliva. Now saliva, the source is mouth. You can see this man is adding saliva to one of the beaker. After I add saliva to one of the beaker, now I put my indicator iodine in both the beakers. So you can see me adding iodine to both the beakers. Now after I add iodine, I am going to swirl it. So both the beakers or solutions in the beaker will become what? Bluish black in color. So you can see. Now keep it standing for some time. Now when I keep it standing for some time, what happens is the beaker to which I have added saliva slowly loses the blue-black color. Why? Because the saliva contains the enzyme called as salivary amylase, which is breaking down starch into simple sugar, and the simple sugar cannot be stained by iodine. Whereas in this beaker, here I have not added saliva. Since I have not added saliva, the starch remains as it is and it is getting stained by iodine. Now, what is the conclusion? The conclusion is that saliva brings down the breakdown of starch into simple molecules like that of glucose. I hope students you have understood this activity too. Now my dear students, this was the end of the nutrition part of the lesson life processes. Now we have to start with the second life processes, which is equally important, and that is nothing but respiration. Now respiration. Respiration is the process of releasing energy from food. Now as the definition itself says, it is the process of releasing energy from food. Now food means it is related to nutrition. Now in nutrition you have seen ingestion, digestion, absorption. So this absorbed food is entering inside the cell. Absorption means entry of the digested food into the cell. After the food enters into the cell, what happens? What happens is the oxygen which is supplied by the respiratory system brings about the oxidation of this food. Oxidation of this food means breakdown of this food inside the cell. And when this food is broken or oxidized in the cell, it releases out the three constituents. The first and the foremost, it gives us energy. With this energy, we perform the work. At the same time, it releases two waste products, carbon dioxide as well as water. So dear students, you can see here, this is the food and this is the oxygen. It is entering inside the cell. Inside the cell, the food is broken down to liberate energy. It is releasing out carbon dioxide and water as a waste material of respiration. Now students, let us discuss about the steps in respiration. The respiration involves 4 steps. First is the intake of oxygen from the surrounding. And after we take in oxygen, this oxygen brings about the oxidation of food. When oxidation of food takes place, it releases out energy. Along with energy, you know that it is releasing out the waste material, that is carbon dioxide. Now that carbon dioxide needs to be thrown out of the body, and again it is thrown out by the body through the lungs. Now, dear students, you can see that the point number 1 we are talking about oxygen, and point number 4 we are talking about carbon dioxide. So 1 and 4 we are talking about the exchange of gases. And that part of respiration which involves the exchange of gases is called as breathing, or you call it as external respiration. This takes place in the respiratory system. Now, whereas step number 2 and 3 are the steps of your internal respiration which takes place in a cell. Now the next diagram I can explain you better. Now my dear students, we are doing step 1 and 4, which is a part of your external respiration. So you can see the students, you can see here, this is the lungs. The lungs is having oxygen because it has taken in air, and along with the air, fresh air, oxygen is there. That oxygen is being carried by red blood cells. The red blood cells are supplying the oxygen to the organ. Organ is utilizing it, and when organ utilizes it, it releases out carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide once again comes back to the lungs and it is expelled out through the lungs. So this is your step 1 and 4 of breathing or your external respiration, which is taking place in your respiratory system. Okay. Now the second slide will show you the internal respiration. Students, step 2 and 3, that is nothing but oxidation of food to release out energy. This will take place inside a cell. Now inside a cell, there is a cell organelle which is called as a mitochondria. It is called as a powerhouse of the cell because it produces ATP. Now here you can see that this is the interior of the cell where we are having glucose and we are having oxygen that is entering into the mitochondria. In the mitochondria, this glucose is broken down and it is liberating ATP as well as carbon dioxide as a waste product. Now we will see the respiratory organs in different animals. Let us take the most simplest animal, that is amoeba. All of you know that amoeba is unicellular. Here the respiration will take place with the help of cell membrane or plasma membrane. Can you see through the plasma membrane the oxygen is entering inside? Can you see through the plasma membrane the carbon dioxide is moving out? So here the gaseous exchange is taking place via the plasma membrane. Now let's come to the next organism, and that is earthworm. Now in case of earthworm, the skin is a respiratory organ in case of earthworm. Now the skin is a respiratory organ in case of earthworm. The skin has to be kept moist for the easy exchange of gases. At the same time, the skin should be richly supplied with blood vessel. So you can see the students here, this is the skin. Through the skin you can see oxygen entering inside, carbon dioxide moving outside. You at the same time, can you see this is richly supplied with blood vessels? So skin in case of earthworm, respiratory organ. Now here you can see in case of a frog. Frog is an amphibian. You can see that the young stage, that is the tadpole of the frog, is utilizing the gills for respiration, whereas an adult frog is using skin as well as it is using lungs for respiration. Now it uses skin for respiration when it is in water, and it will utilize lungs for respiration when it is on land. Now here you have the respiratory system of grasshopper, that is example, that is insect. Can you see there are small openings which are called as the spiracles? Through the spiracle the air will enter inside, and the air will keep on moving in the entire body through the tracheal tubes. So trachea is a respiratory organ in case of insects. Now let us come to fish. All of you know that the respiratory organ in case of fish is your gills. So you can see the gills over here. Okay. Now there is a peculiarity about the respiratory rate or the breathing rate of a fish. Now human beings or terrestrial animals, we take in the oxygen which is present in the atmosphere. And in the atmosphere there is ample amount of oxygen when we compare it with that of water. Now oxygen is a gas which is sparingly soluble. Sparingly soluble means it is less soluble in water. So that means the availability of oxygen in the water is very less. So since oxygen is very less, the fishes have to increase their breathing rate to take up ample amount of oxygen from the water, as compared to that of terrestrial animals like that of human beings. So the respiratory rate of a fish is always higher as compared to the respiratory rate of a human being. Now, we have seen the different type of respiratory organs like that of the skin, the gills, the trachea and the lungs. Now in material, whether it is skin, gills, trachea or lungs, it should satisfy a particular set of conditions. What are those conditions? 1. It should have a large surface area for the exchange of gases. Now, this respiratory organs should have a thin walls and it should be kept moist. Why it should have a thin wall and it should be kept moist? So that there can be easy diffusion of gases. Okay, next. It should be richly supplied with blood vessels, because the blood is the one which will transport the gases. So these are the conditions which need to be satisfied by any type of respiratory organs. Students, now let us come to the respiratory system of human being. It consists of nostril, nasal cavity, pharynx, trachea, bronchi and lungs. So we will individually study each and every part. So we will start with the first one, that is the nostril. So nostril. Can you see the nostril? Nostril is the opening of the nose. It is through the nostril that the air is entering into the respiratory system. After the air enters through the nostril, the air enters into the next part, which is called as the nasal cavity. Now nasal cavity, it is the cavity of the nose. Now it is separated by a cartilaginous septum and internally lined by cilia and mucus secreting cells. Now this cilia filters the air which is entering inside, and the mucus which is there will moisten the air. Now let's go to the next organ. that is pharynx. Now pharynx is a region between the throat and the trachea. If you recollect properly, you know that it is a common opening for food as well as air. So here there are two pictures which you can see. Picture 1 here you can see this violet color to this light green color. This entire area is that of the pharynx, starting from the throat and ending in the trachea. Okay. Now students, you know that the pharynx is a common opening for food as well as air, and food from the pharynx will enter into the esophagus and the air from the pharynx will enter into the trachea. Now, at no point of time it should happen that the food from the pharynx will enter into the respiratory system or the trachea. Now, to prevent that, there is always a flap of skin, and that flap of skin is called as the epiglottis. See here, this is the epiglottis. You can see the epiglottis is kept open and the air is entering into the trachea at the time of respiration. Now in this diagram, the man is consuming food. So the green particle which you are seeing is the food. Now the food should not enter into the trachea at all. So to prevent the choking, you can see that the epiglottis is closing the opening of the trachea and the food is slowly moving into the esophagus. Okay. So that is the function of the pharynx. Now after the pharynx, we will study the next organ, that is trachea. Now here this is the trachea. Now trachea is a narrow muscular tube. Being muscular tube, there are chances that it can collapse. To prevent the collapsing of the trachea, it is supported by C-shaped cartilage. And internally, the trachea is also lined by ciliated epithelium and mucus secreting cells. Actually, the ciliated epithelium cells are called as the sweepers. How the sweepers will always clean an area with the help of the broom. The same way, the cilia will keep on cleaning our respiratory system so that no dust particles enter into our lungs. Okay. Now the trachea enters into the chest cavity and divides to form two branches. And this two branches is called as bronchi. Bronchi is plural and bronchus is singular. So after the trachea enters into the chest cavity and divides to form two bronchi. As I said, it is plural and bronchus is singular. So we will see in the next diagram now. Yeah. Now the bronchi will again divide to form bronchiole, which is a part of lungs. We will see later. Now let us go to lungs now. Bronchi is entering into the lungs. So let us see the structure of lungs now. Lungs is present in the thoracic cavity, and here I have the diagram of thoracic cavity. You can see the lungs being protected by the sternum. On the lateral side it is protected by the ribs. At the back side it is protected by the diaphragm. Now on the lower side, the chest cavity and the abdominal cavity is separated by a muscular partition which is called as the diaphragm. Now let us go to now study the internal structure of lung. As stated earlier, the bronchus, that is the singular, we are talking about a single part, that's why. The bronchus enters into the lungs of its own side. The bronchus enters into the lungs of its own side and it will divide to form still smaller branches. Can you see the smaller branches? And these smaller branches are called bronchioles. Now these bronchioles end into small balloon-like structures, and the small balloon-like structures are called as the alveoli. It is in the alveoli that the exchange of gases takes place. So that means the air which is entering through the nostril, then to the nasal cavity, then the pharynx, then the trachea, then the bronchi, and then bronchioles. Finally, it is entering into the alveoli, and it is the alveoli which is lined by blood vessel, or I can say richly supplied with blood vessel, where the exchange of gases will take place. The alveoli will be containing oxygen-rich air which will be passed into the blood, and the carbon dioxide-rich air from the blood will be taken up by the alveoli and will be expelled out through our respiratory system. Now, this exchange of gases we will study in the next period. Now, students, this marks the end of this period and I have some assignment questions for you. Describe the common features of all respiratory organ. Explain the respiratory system of human beings and name the respiratory organs of animals, that is amoeba, earthworm, fish, frog and grasshopper. At the same time, students, do watch the video. I have given you the link. Okay, and keep studying and keep learning until we meet next time. Thank you.